I'm CraigO, and join me on my adventures with CraigO's cryptocurrency as we cover the blockchain, Web3, NFT, and cryptocurrency technologies. Interviewing the best in the industry, giving tips and tricks, and also sharing with you projects that I'm most excited about. You're tuning into CraigO's Crypto Corner, the best in Web3, blockchain, NFT, and cryptocurrency technology. Great reviews, incredible interviews with some of the most leading people in the Web3 ethos, and just the general things Web3. I have said many times before, plot, plan, strategize, organize, and implement. And that is exactly what today's guest has done today, has done with his podcast clothing line, his personalized NFT collection, and his overall brand known as the Joyage. Humility is key, and early in Web3, like me, Cade is making incredible connections throughout the space. We as podcasters realize that our ability to clearly articulate relevant subject matter to our audience and the nuances of the blockchain, NFTs, and cryptocurrencies can provide to be a welcomed challenge. We see the value in building our place in Web3 through peer-to-peer connectivity, and I am excited for our ever-growing CraigO's Crypto Corner audience family to subscribe and engage with Cade's The Joyage podcast content. We will do a deep dive into the project reviews, theories, strategies on NFT investing, and how mass adoption will take place. Cade's presence in Web3 is all about practicality and common sense. Welcome, Cade. How are you, my friend?
Yo, dude, that was quite the intro. Thank you for that.
Thank you, my man. It's awesome to have you here. It's an honor coming off of your podcast a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to jump right into it, right? And I want to do a screen share. Mike, if you can just put us in on that screen share. One of the coolest things that any creative mind can do, you're not just a podcaster, it's so much more, but I want to talk about your NFT collection, Joyage, A Quest to Nowhere. So tell me about this collection, why you started it, and what was the impetus for it?
Yeah, I love talking about this because that happened all way before any of the YouTube stuff kicked off. So this was a couple months before I did YouTube. I posted these collections. So what had happened was the NFT market was crazy. And I always get nostalgic talking about this because it's pretty much the only time in my life that I feel nostalgia for with a happy feeling when I look back on it is like the summer and fall of last year. It was just absolutely degenerate crazy out there. And so the NFT photography wave picks up, right? And I'm following it closely because I was traveling around. I was living in my car. I was, trying to find myself and all these things, right? And I take all these sick photos and I see this collection go absolutely viral. And it was funny because I skipped out on it. I saw the collection, had no buys, maybe like one or two. And then Alex Becker, this very prominent YouTuber guy in the crypto space, buys them. And he says, I think this is going to be cool. And I looked at it again and said, I don't know. It's good, but I don't know if it, why would an NFT photography piece fly? It doesn't make any sense. Only things blown up are PFPs. And then the collection sold out like an hour later and flew to like 2 ETH floor or something. And I was like, oh, so this is a thing. And I was like, all right, well, my photos are just as good. So I made one collection, had like 20 in it. And then the guy, this is like the weirdest thing. The guy whose project I just talked about that I skipped on, his name is Fidel. Now we're good friends. He ended up buying my NFT, tweeting about it, and did the exact same thing Alex Becker did for him, sold out my collection. And then it kind of went from there. I dropped another one a few months later, and that one was picked up by my YouTube fam. And since then, it's just been my access keys. It started as just art pieces, and it still is just art pieces, but I want it to also be some form of utility in the future. I want these access key collections to be the most legendary photography sets out there.
No, and they're absolutely really cool. And I'll just go through them for a brief sec because we got a lot to cover today. But how amazing, at what you've been able to do at the age of 24 is so impressive. And to be able to spot what we call a trend. And I know of Alex Becker and Ilio Trades, those are two guys that really captivated me last year when I was thinking about starting my podcast. So really cool that sort of intertwining in that family, you were able to spot a trend at that time. And I think, again, trends will come back. But again, I think you're around for a long time, so I'm very excited to see what you're doing. You do a lot with personal development in your podcast content. How come, and do you feel it will be applicable in Web3 for the growth of podcasters, community mods, developers, and also people that are getting in and out of projects or holding long term? Why do you think that personal development aspect is so important?
Well, I think it adds another layer of dimension, and we saw this kind of happen right in front of us when the market had crashed, right? We saw all the YouTubers who are making alpha calls, it was a bit one-dimensional. I think they realized that within a couple months, they were like, shit, my content's pretty much like as surface level as it gets. And they're like, crap, I need to do something here to add some depth here. Like for example, if one of those YouTubers does a podcast, they're probably not going to get any views because people don't watch them for that. They'd never involved that in their content, their own personal brand. And I think if you're going to grow in the space, it depends how long your time horizon is. If you want to be here in the space as a content creator for the next 20 years, then it's like common sense that you want to throw in some personal development, things that you care about, things you're working through online. Because the coolest thing about the internet is like, even if I did an interview with myself and those only get a couple hundred views because only a couple hundred people are going to care about that, right? So I make those videos, and I spend time editing them and clipping them up, which takes just as long as any other podcast, which I could probably save myself the time and energy and just clip up one that has to do with NFTs. But you can touch people with like 200 views. You don't need 10,000 views. And in this past year alone, it's taught me that the numbers do not tell the story at all. I went full-time on YouTube at 900 subscribers, which is unheard of. I thought it was going to be 100K before I made full-time or even made any money. And I figured out after, a month or two doing NFT YouTube that there's other ways to make money where you can leverage your YouTube. And I was like, oh, that's never something I thought about. And so all those things kind of combined together. And I knew that if I was going to be the best podcast host, then I got to start somewhere in some kind of niche and grow in that space, and then take it over, move on to the next, sort of like a Logan Paul character. And that's kind of the arc I'm going for. And to do that, I need to cover all my bases and make sure people know who I am. And I don't want to run into this thing in 5 years when I'm like, all right, I think people know me. I think people care about me. I think people like this stuff. I'm going to do this thing. I'm really excited about it. And then nobody gives a shit about it because I've never actually shared that part of me. So.
No, I love it. And by the way, we got Twitter Spaces going live today.
Yeah.
YouTube. And what's really cool about it, and I want to know specifically from your end, what are your thoughts on Twitter Spaces and how important is it? Because I had a call with a founder who's going to be coming on soon enough. And we talked about some really challenging topics. So I'm not going to mention the project, but they're a pretty solidified project on the Elrond network. And we had some real conversation. What are your thoughts around Twitter Spaces and what does it mean in the way of growth and strategy overall for anybody in Web3?
I hate Twitter Spaces. I don't like Twitter Spaces. I'm going to be totally honest. I feel very uncomfortable on them. I don't like how it feels more live than anything else I've ever done, because for some reason there's like a little bit of a buffer when you're on YouTube. It feels like you've got like a second to pull things up. There's visual to look at, but when you're on Twitter Spaces, if you take a pause to kind of gather your thoughts, people are just sitting there going like, why isn't he talking? Like, why are they talking? What's going on? Like, am I getting rugged? And you don't know if you're getting rugged. There's nothing to look at. You can't just pull up a link. You have to go to a tweet that's been tweeted and use that as like the pinned one at the top. And it makes no sense to me because I tried to do tea time yesterday. It was actually amazing. We had a great turnout.
Yeah,
but it's just like, oh man, it was so much extra work. It's fine. I think I just need to get more used to it. I don't do them that often. I just prefer video. Like I would prefer to do this 10 times out of 10 than do a Twitter space. But I know it's good. It's the meta right now. Everyone's doing Twitter spaces. So fuck it, whatever. I'm not going to not hop on it because I feel like my ego has been struck or something like that. And people aren't going to YouTube.
You know, we were talking about it when I first started the podcast, this vulnerability of like when I was doing your intro, I had 2 or 3 flubs in there and I was like, oh shoot. And before it meant something to me and it would bring me down. Then I was like, you know what? That's irrelevant because what you have to do is remove the ego from it. But what I think is an important thing is that you realize, and I'm glad I got that out of you, is that know spaces is important for us, for founders. I think founders, they literally built a storybook of their NFTs and they were making money, which is great. Their holders were making money. And then somebody got left with the bag and was like, well, what's going to happen? And then people were kind of liquidating, selling at a loss. Some people like myself, I want to hold on to these things. These are relics. These can be really big in the future, even more so than what they were in our last bull run. But you and I both know that Twitter Spaces, even though it's uncomfortable, because I was going to say when you pause, someone, if there's another speaker, they just come in and talk over you.
You'd hope so. You'd hope so.
Yeah, and if you're not engaged with your thoughts and your content, you're done. You're the next person. You put on your mute button, and then you get another chance to raise your hand and come back on. So it's not as consistent as YouTube. What we're doing right now is absolutely. I love the brand that you're building around Joyage. And some of the items most notable right now in your collection are the classic tee, the classic black tee, the red hat, the black duffel bag. Why the merch? I want to know about this.
Dude, let me see if I can find. Here's the red hat, actually, right next to me. Here's the Joyage red hat. These are not available anymore on the website. They actually I did the drop and it lasted 2 weeks, and then I closed the shop until the winter one. So I see that you've got the classic Joyage tee, that you got that all safe and sound in the mail. So love it. Looks great on you, by the way.
I want to tell you, it's really great quality, and it fits
Fucking go.
really well, and I really like it, and I'm gonna rock it. We've actually gotten back. We got our on-chain monkey hat. I almost dropped the camera. Sorry, downtime. That was my bad. And so, funny enough, I just want to say, Knights of Degen, Drew Austin, Spoiled Banana Society, Richard and Boris Wagner, Crypto Pits, Steve and Jared Craig, and Super Rare Bears from our Elron network, Duncan Twig. Guys, send me some merch. You can just sit in the back here. Come on. I love you guys. So,
I'm telling you, man.
Let's talk about the merchandise. How have the sales been? And are you surprised? Are you overwhelmed, underwhelmed? What say you, sir?
So I didn't know what to expect. It's my first kind of endeavor into this little influencer realm of selling clothes. I never thought it would actually happen. And it was good. I made a few sales. The markups on them weren't high because the goal, especially for the first few launches, is not really to make a ton of money. You're not going to move lots of product, if you're not going to move a lot of product and have a shit ton of numbers, it's not really worth it for the money, in my opinion. It's just like, get the product out there, get people wearing the clothes. And then, if I'm going to be here 25 years or something, I'm sure there'll be plenty of other clothes launches I can drop when there's more people looking for it. And right now it's just kind of like to get it into people's doors and stuff like that. But it was good. I mean, I guess I was surprised by certain people who didn't pick it up or just like didn't say anything. But then I remembered, like, this is a big world. Everyone's got their own stuff going on. It's not like my little YouTube clothes drop is like top of their priority list. But I was a little bit surprised by who didn't. But I think it's just how it goes in the influencer space. People are just got things to do. So it was fun. I mean, I got it out. I got a lot of my friends who have always been wanting to wear the clothes now are literally wearing it on their head. They're wearing the hat, they're wearing the shirt, and it feels cool. It's not surreal, I guess, because I've been wearing the clothes for so long and I've kind of manifested in my head for so long. That's kind of I guess I can't quite grasp the fact that you're actually wearing the shirt. It's cool, but I'm not sure.
I want to tell you what the shirt means to me. First of all, you're a 24/7 content creator like myself. That's what I've become, alongside of being a realtor, an Uber dad, a husband, just balancing my life. And to me, I'm inspired by you. I'm inspired by Easton Gladney, because you guys are constantly creating content. And again, that's how this podcast came together. Shout out to Pyramid Group. They're doing incredible things. We're actually going to have Matt Swayze on. He's doing Matty's Metrics. So he's got a great way to evaluate projects. So it's just really amazing to see all the incredible people around me that keep me inspired daily. Because some days I'm like, you know what? It's kind of like Twitter overload. I can handle Discord to a certain point. And I do want to talk to you about that in a moment. But I want to talk to you about Starbucks. Let's do a little bit of a dive into them, their Odyssey platform. What is your take on this big brand entering the space? What are the pros and what are the cons from your end?
So the first thing I'll say about Starbucks is they're probably one of the only big conglomerate chains that didn't straight go into the metaverse and try and take over the metaverse like every other company we've seen. Like, we just saw Walmart the other day. Like, we're gonna do the Walmart-verse. I'm like,
I know.
All right, we'll see what happens. The Starbucks one is good. I think it's it leaves a lot of room for improvement and stuff like that. Like, they wanted to basically build upon their rewards program, which is, I think, a good idea. I'm not so sure about the games they want to play and like random little knickknacks here and there, but as far as just adopting the blockchain to potentially at some point take over the rewards program, I think it's a great idea. And I like that idea. Some people are going to be fighting to get as many points as they can so they can resell it like they do in a video game. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like. I mean, these kind of things, when you're predicting what Starbucks is going to do in 5-10 years, you don't know. Like, when Facebook's been building for the metaverse for 10 years, you don't know like where they're at, where in production they started. You don't know how much money they really allocated. You don't know how fast things are going. And we can't really know what it's going to look like in 5 to 10 years. We can just be excited that it's happening. And if it wasn't happening, I'd be scared. If Starbucks wasn't jumping in, I'd be scared. If McDonald's was jumping in, I'd be scared. But they are jumping in. And in the worst time of the market ever. So I'm like, okay, there has to be something here. Otherwise, they wouldn't all bother coming in when the market crashed.
Well, I mean, but it goes to that part of mass adoption. When do you think NFTs will find that heavy adoption? And what do you think that driving catalyst is? Right now, we're speaking around big corporations, big businesses. But what do you think that mass adoption is idea? I have a thought, but I want to hear yours.
Oh man, dude, mass adoption. I've heard every number under the sun being thrown. I have no real answer as far as like a real timeline. Like I just don't know. I don't know how long that stuff takes. In my opinion, though, I've heard 10 years. I've heard 5 years. I really haven't heard too much past 10. And I would be fucking shocked if it took 10 years. I just don't see it happen. I know everyone keeps saying that and they're like, well, things take time. You know, if you look in the past, like this and that and the other. I'm like, yeah, but like you don't understand. We're in a new era where things happen like that. We got people being paid millions of dollars to make things happen like that. And I'm like, I just don't see it taking 10 years. I don't see that being possible. I don't see anyone waiting that's just way too long. In my generation, in this technology generation of TikTok, where everyone's attention span is that of a gnat. I just don't see a world where even the people building the space don't have 10 years worth. I mean, it'll probably take 10 years for it to be like beautiful and to walk around the metaverse and like, oh, like look at all these things. But I think it's got to be closer to 5, but who fucking knows?
My thought on it, and tell me what you think, is that the smartphones are, when you have Apple and you have Verizon, right? You have any of the hardware makers. Once they start to put the software apps onto the phones automatically, just like Minecraft or Google Play or any of the other things, once you start to see that, and it becomes easier to be used to be able to buy and do transactions, right? It's about the easiness. It's about the easiness.
Convenience. Maybe
convenience. I think that's when you're going to really start to see this heavy pickup. You know, refine your strategy in this bear market, right? It is an absolutely humbling moment, or one that maybe you're welcome to. But I guess I look at, how do you learn, build, and grow during this current market downturn? What is like your go-to source of information that someone listener right now can be like, I need to pick that up and read it, or I need to watch this, aside from our stuff, without shilling, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, when I think about this question, it's the epitome of like why my brand exists. I think about these questions every single day. And I know people may say that, but I actually like intentionally will ask myself, where am I needed? What skills am I lacking? What would a company who watches my channel want from me potentially? What could they get from me? What can I actually offer and give back? And I would honestly say, if you want to know what's going on in the NFT space, you follow our channels, because that is my goal, is to keep people informed. Like when they come to my YouTube, they should be leaving my YouTube saying, wow, I don't care if there's another NFT YouTuber. This is everything I need, because I cover everything. So I would go for us first. But if we're not going to say us, as far as an NFT source, Watch Your Guru on Twitter tweets every single event that's ever happened ever. Every 3 seconds, there's a tweet coming out of there. So if you really want to know, Watch Your Guru on Twitter. They're just this random conglomerate account. They just post everything. And then CoinDesk. I've always liked CoinDesk. I've always liked WGMI Media for their, I just like their UI on their website. It's just really easy to follow. You get all the information nicely bundled. It's usually one little article, one video, or something like that. Trying to think of other YouTubers who've been consistent.
You got it. Like, I agree. I love CoinDesk. We actually had on Casey Craig, who's the global head of communications. She came on. That was really cool. We had some conversations around directly crypto, obviously, related news on some of the exploits in this space, which there are a ton. Right? There's a scam around every corner. Hence CraigO's Crypto Corner. Discord, right? It was not planned for the NFT space. You and I both know that. Does this platform, from your opinion, does it need to evolve? Does it need an overhaul? What do you think? And if so,
that one's tough. It's hard for me to answer, because as a creator, an independent creator with no team behind me or anything like that, Discord's been fine for me. Like, I've had really no issues on my end. I've just noticed on projects ends, maybe there's a bunch of things that they got to worry about that I don't need to worry about. A bunch of bots, all these things that go wrong. There's hacks and stuff. So I imagine for a company, maybe like a Hate Beast, where they had all this attention on them, Discord probably failed them in some capacity. So for me, I'm like, either Discord has to really pick themselves up and not pull an OpenSea where they fix a bunch of problems that don't need to be fixed, and then don't ever like respond to anything that needs to be like, I don't know, they need some kind of ambassador between the creators and the people doing stuff on the platform and the people building the platform, because it seems there's some kind of disconnect here in the middle. If they fix that, I think Discord's no problem, because Discord's already been built. It's like people trying to move over from YouTube. It's really hard to move over from YouTube. I know Rumble exists. I know whatever the fuck else also exists, but like, YouTube's right there, bro. I'm like, YouTube's got it all right there. I'm comfortable on YouTube. It's gonna be hard to move away from Discord. I know Telegram's a potential competitor. I think Telegram sucks. I think it's ugly. I think nothing about it is close to as good as Discord. I don't have an answer that's better than Discord. So
no, I love it. And it's interesting where the brands go to sponsor and where they think that they're going to gain that traffic that's going to appeal to traditional business products and service, which has been a big focus of my podcast. I went into your archive of TikTok, and I love your videos. And, what is the ultimate creator strategy when working with an influencer? And I came up with the Griffith Griffin Johnson strategy, the Griffin
All
Johnson
right.
strategy. And instead of receiving money for a given product, give it away to promote in the form of coupon codes to the community directly. So rather than receiving that money, actually utilize it to build your audience. And it was a really smart play, and you spoke about it, and I thought it was really cool. Tell me a little bit more about what I don't know about Griffin Johnson, and how cool that was an idea from his end. Rather than going for the instantaneous gratification, he was willing to delay that to show love to his audience. What are your thoughts around that?
My thoughts are that was probably the best take I've seen from a famous TikToker on NFTs. It seems like he actually has spent some time in this space. So shout out Griffin. I agree. And I'm not going to go into any details here, but I've been in a couple of meetings where that kind of conversation happens. And if everything goes smoothly, then that's basically the deal that I'll be getting. And hopefully I can do some cool things for my own holders. And I know I don't have a project, but because my little collection is so small, there's like 20, and I think there's maybe 20 people in my Discord that are holders, right? Because like half the people are just collectors. They don't really like participate in NFT stuff. They're just collectors of art. So half my holders don't even know that I'm a YouTuber. They just bought my photography. They don't really know who I am. Half my holders know who I am, and they hold it for that reason. So for the people who are in my Discord, I want to be able to give back to them and do things like that. So if I'm getting tokens back for redemption for something on their website, or if I'm getting some kind of like, hey, they partnered up with this company and now they've got all these cool benefits or whatever, like I'm probably just going to give that to them instead, because like with my reputation growing, like everybody wins that's tied to me. So I'm like, if I grow, my reputation grows, the access keys grow, like the what's the word? Not the lore around it, but like the message around it, like what people think when they think of my Joyage Kingdom access keys. I want them to go like, holy shit, I can't believe you own one. Those are so hard, or they're so expensive, or that's the coolest project I've ever seen. I want people to have that feel. So I want to do as much cool shit for them as possible.
Well, it's gravitational force. You're bringing them in through honest, transparent content. I do want to talk about those awesome sunglasses. And at the beginning, I just, I had to throw on my cool Ray-Bans just to join you. And I want to be clear. There we go. I want to be clear on this, that I thought it was, and I remember we talked offline, and I said, this is a very big risk that you took, but the reward was incredible, because some people at the beginning, like, oh, what is he wearing those glasses for? Now, when I think of you immediately, I think of your sunglasses. Like, that is your brand. That is your calling card, aside from the merchandise, aside from Joyage. It's everything about you. That was a big risk that you took. Can you tell our audience why you took that risk?
Yeah, in the very beginning, it was a joke. It was a Halloween last year. I thought about doing it. I still might do it. But I went to Goodwill and I picked up like 20 masks and wore one every single day. But I was uploading like 3 videos a day. So I ran out of masks in like a week. And I had to start reusing masks. And I got to a point where I just needed a generic mask. I just threw this back on, wore it like 4 times over the course of that month. And people liked it. And I was like, all right, well, it does great for thumbnails. If I line it up with the light, it looks cool in thumbnails like that. And so I just took a bunch of thumbnails, kept the glasses. I saw a bunch of people recognize them, or they're like, hey, like I clicked on your video just because I recognized the glasses or whatever. There was just so much attention there. I got a bunch of positive feedback. I had multiple like business CEOs give me some positive reinforcement there. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really care. It wasn't something I really cared about. In the NFT space, there was too much degeneracy with too many adults that I was like, man, fuck these guys. I can do whatever I want. So I just started doing them, and I got in these conversations with some big up people. And they liked them. Like I remember when I hopped on a call with Greg Norman, super established entrepreneur, has a very, very, very cool dude. And as soon as I got on the call with him, I didn't have my glasses because I was like, I'm not going to wear these glasses on the first time meeting this dude. And as soon as he pops from the screen, he's like, bro, where are your glasses? And I was like, yo, all right, that's it. I'm wearing them. So now it's just good because, yeah, exactly that, for the brand. And at some point, I want to upgrade these. They're plastic. They're made like, they're like $2. I got them at some random Goodwill. I want to make these like, I don't even know what brand of glasses are super expensive, but I want to make these luxury brand glasses and somehow use some of the same colors, maybe the green, the red, the yellow. I'm not sure, but I want them to be sick. And at some point in the future, I want to be able to distribute them.
I love it. And, one of the things that I had talked about with the founders, Mike, I think I see you. There we are. One of the things that I talked about with one of the founders was, founder has a very successful project in the bull run, right? And it mints out, and then they go, wait, people bought my stuff. I'm going to do another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And then you're thinking to yourself, okay, through this whole thing, and this big question I'm going to have for this founders, you have all these projects, all these sub-communities within your overarching ecosystem. And I think it's really cool if they're done right. And every NFT within that collection, right, because you have subsequent collections, they all have a purpose. And I wonder, with founders, when they're doing it, it can't just be a money player, because I think like last year, money was just pouring in. Like you could throw spaghetti on the wall, and if you knew what to do and you got a little bit of alpha, right? Because alpha is not what it's going to be in the next bull run. Next time it's going to be way more educated, way more thoughtful. It's not going to be the pixelated picture that's just going to get you. The community has to be mature and developed. But my question for you is, when you look at projects that read like a storybook, right? And so you have one NFT community that has multiple collections. What are your thoughts on the holders? And what are your thoughts on how each of those NFTs within that particular collection speak to one another in that ecosystem? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I'd say in the beginning, most projects did it out of being forced to it. Everyone was like, we need a companion collection or whatever. And I like the idea of a companion collection. It depends on like how deep you want to get into it. Like I really like the Mutant Ape Board Ape Yacht Club little thing they do. I don't really care about their brand as much. There's something about their brand that I particularly connect with. But, whatever. They dropped this collection. People couldn't afford to get in, so they dropped the Mutants. I did the same thing. I have my 2 access key collections that are, I think, 0.7 ETH and 0.5 ETH, so pretty expensive to buy into it. So if you can't get into it, there's really no other opportunity to buy into my brand or support or anything. And so people have been asking, they're like, hey, well, what about the close? I'm like, okay, well, I'll do the close in little drops 2 weeks at a time. But if you don't get in one of those slots, there's really no other way. So I made these torch collections, and I had Sydney Esposito. I think you had her on the podcast, didn't you?
We did.
Yeah.
Visuals.
Yeah, she's an amazing person, one of my favorite humans on earth, and an incredible artist. I love artists. And so I was like, hey, I want to pay you just like a flat commission. I just need you to draw the outline of this art piece. I'm just going to basically duplicate it and just make a bunch of them. And so I made 36, and I dropped 36 to be kind of like a complimentary set to the Joyage Access Key collection. And I just dropped them on OpenSea, and I said, okay, if anyone wants them, this is your opportunity to get in. There's no utility to these. These are 100% only to join the brand. There's no access key, functionality or anything like that. There potentially could be in the future. Depends on how, rich I get or how much cool connections I can make, or maybe I can start to pass it on to the torch holders. But right now, as of now, they're just there to join the brand. A lot of people just wanted that, and I never really understood that until NFTs. But now I do. Like if there was a YouTuber out there that I really liked and they dropped this collection, and it's like, wow, he didn't charge $2,000 for this NFT. He charged like $50, which is what all my NFTs basically cost, like anywhere from $50 to $150 or something. Then I'm like, fuck yeah, I would buy that. Like if my friend who's a YouTuber dropped a collection, they were literally $100. I'm like, yeah, I'd probably pick one of those up. So I kind of did it like that. And I have one of those for each collection at some point. And so I like the idea of those secondary collections to get people in. Some people just want to participate. I buy an NFT. Rarely do I do anything with it. I don't have time. Like there's some NFTs that you can bet, like Bet3 NFT just dropped in Solana. I bought one because it's Cody's NFTs, another YouTuber, and a lot of people are using them to bet on games and stuff. And like I probably could every now and then, but like for me, it's just about holding that token as a friendship and just having it in my wallet and just being grateful that I have it. And I'm here to talk to my friends in the space and have fun. And like this, right now, I love this. This is like the most fun ever to go on stream with you, knowing that we're live and just chatting.
I love it. And we're bringing value to the people that are listening, both now and also post-recording, because I feel like you get the best information when, for instance, with my podcast, and we had talked about it, I always want to make sure that I'm bringing the best out of my guests, because it's an honor to have you on here. You've been able to monetize, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have about 8,800 subscribers on your YouTube, a little over 10,000 subscribers on your TikTok. You have established yourself in such a short amount of time. And it's not about the number of followers. It's the actual quality of engagement. And I really love how you engage with me even daily, even before and after our subsequent podcast, because, kind of what inspires us, what inspires me is to see what you're doing. And maybe some of what I'm doing does the same. And I always say that any guest that comes on to here, I've been really selective, making sure that we're bringing people on that are going to add value. They become a family of this. So any of the contacts and people that I have, I want to make sure that you're growing and building, because as you're doing better, why would I not in turn do better if you're building that, long-term relationship? And that's sort of that long-term diamond mind set where that holds the diamond hand. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that on NFTs. Like if there's a project that I get in and I see an immediate like zoom up and I can grab liquidity right now, I might do it. Yeah. I'm not saying no, but I believe in projects like On-Chain Monkey, Knights of Degen. I believe in what you're doing and the value of your NFT collection. And by the way, with your first NFT collection, right? How many, was it 100?
No, it was 20, 26, and then 36.
Okay. And let's just think about this. You got 36 people there, right? That purchased into this.
Yep.
And nobody is trying to drop the floor on it. That to me is very impressive, because people are believing, and they're believing in you. And that's sort of that founder example. And it's at a very small micro level when you have a collection of 10,000 and then they got another collection of 30,000. It's like, okay, how many thousands can we have? And at what point does that value just, plummet, right? So it's all about the art, or isn't it? what got people into NFTs won't necessarily keep them there. And how do you see those who purchased their favorite PFP last year approaching their most likely potential losses, right? Because they're looking this year and they're licking their wounds, metaphorically speaking, and they're seeing that their favorite project that they got into, and we'll go in fiat so that most people can understand it, $2,500, which at the time might have been a little under a half an ETH, give or take, at the height of Ethereum. And now that same project's worth 600 or 700. So are they cost averaging in, or are they selling to grab liquidity on the next hype train? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, it depends how they played the market after post crazy degenerate mode, right? Like it depends if they got another job and went back to normal life, or if they just tried to maintain trading NFTs in a lesser market. From what I've seen, even if you have your favorite PFP, if it's truly a favorite NFT, it's really hard to sell. Like I still haven't. There's been times where I'm like, man, maybe I should sell this, but it's really hard. There's like 2 or 3 that even if I was to hurt in the short term, it's like worth keeping, even though I paid way too much for it. I just don't care at this point. I'm like, I'm already too deep in there, so there's no point. But if there's an NFT that I'm holding that's strictly out of whatever value, it's not really tied to another person that I like or a friend, then I'll just flip it, even though it hurts. It hurt really bad. Like I remember I held an Ugaverse all the way to 3 ETH, just kind of let it sit there, and I was like, I'll never sell this. And then like at some point I sold it, and it was just like way less than 3 ETH. You know, it's just kind of how it goes. But in any market, you're going to deal with that. And like with the access keys, it's a little bit different because it's not tied to the market as much. I mean, if somebody really needs liquidity, then, you know, potentially they would sell to get out. But a lot of the time, like I think with my access keys, I think 0.3 is probably like one of the lower numbers that it gets to, and typically it gets picked up if there's one that's listed that low. And shout out Easton here, because Easton is the reason, how you mentioned a second ago, how we talked off camera a little bit. Easton's the reason that I like a lot of things have happened in my life, honestly. Like one of them being the fact that like I didn't know how to do things on virtual podcasts. I think he was my first one ever. And after our podcast we filmed, I like hung up because like we were done and I didn't know what to do. I was like, do I text him? Am I supposed to like, I don't know how this works. Like, what do you do after a podcast? So then he calls me right after and he's like, dude, that was great. And we just kind of like debrief for a couple minutes. And I was like, oh, that's how you do it. And so he's actually taught me a lot. And so shout out Easton.
Yeah, he has a lot of respect for you in turn, and I thought that's really cool because both he's 22 and you're 24, right? How cool
something like that. Yeah, that's cool shit, dude.
I'm coming in at 45 and I'm loving it.
Go.
We're covering a gamut, man. We're missing the 30s, which is awesome.
Hell yeah, man.
You know, I believe you mentioned in subsequent podcasts of yours, influencers, NFT projects that have completely left Web3. How many do you think are currently plotting, planning, strategizing for their next move, even if we have not heard from them as of late?
I think a lot of founders are kind of just spinning their wheels. They're kind of damned if they're not, damned if they are, kind of feel there's not a whole lot of announcements that are helping. And even if they are positive, like what does that do? Like if a project has this big announcement, all this great stuff happens, 40 or 50 get picked up off the floor. In reality, they're making whatever, a few $1,000 or whatever off those royalties, and that's pretty much it. So I think it's really hard because building a business is harder than it sounds. Like finding a product that's going to sell is harder than it sounds, or a service is hard. It's hard to sell those things, right? And if you're just an NFT project with all this money, but no anything else, you're like, shit, we're literally just going to run out of money at some point. It might be a while before we run out of money, but like, what are we going to throw that's going to be money generating? That's going to bring us cash flow. And like, that's a pretty hard answer. You throw a party, unless you get picked up by a VC fund or an angel investor who likes your stuff, you're basically fucked. And even if they do invest your money, now what? Now you got even more money to just burn through and lose. So it really depends on the competency of the founders. That's why I always talk about that being the number one. All my long-term holds are people that I believe in, that I like, that I'm like, look, I think they're going to try really hard. I see something in myself in them, and I'm going to invest in that part of me in them. And I'm going to hold this token. I think they're going to go somewhere. Like, that's why I've always liked Subducks. I've like, whenever I first talked to Frankie, I was like, this is a cool dude. He's been here a long time and he's got that fight. He's got that fight in him where he wants to win really bad. He wants to make this work. I want to be part of that too. So I jumped in. And if you're a project and you're just you dropped this thing and you did a little bit of hype in the bull market and you sold out, now your floor price is at 0.01. Nobody cares. There's 9 people in your Discord. It's really, I don't have a great answer for those projects. Like, I'm not exactly sure what they can do. Potentially get bought by another project, potentially collaborate with the bigger project that maybe they take over, or they get a little bit of percentage or something and they try and adopt them. But I mean, Gary Vee did tell us like a year ago that most of these projects are going to shit, and I think we're going to see a lot of them kind of just disappear.
Gary Vee was mentioned this morning. Like he's mentioned all the time. He's done such a great job. I utilized his content at the very beginning, maybe 2017, just on self-improvement. Some of those things really shared a lot about himself. And he's a heavy hitter in the Web3 space. He just inked a very big deal. So he's got, he's in Toys R Us and Macy's. And it's really cool. And this morning there was a conversation with another project that I'm going to be talking about next week on my podcast. I'm going to have Ralph Quintero as a guest. Again, from the Daily Ralph, he's going to come and do like a 10 or 15 minute just kind of update. I actually got into 11 of the projects mentioned in his Daily Ralph, and we're going to kind of go through those and figure out which ones we want to give honorable mention to. A few of them maybe didn't fare so well, and that's cool. And we're gonna go over a few of those and why failure might have happened. And I think that's always a good conversation, especially if people want to play in this Web3 ethos. I wanted to share something with you. One of the conversations I had with Easton is he goes, just share just a little bit about yourself each podcast so people get to know you. And so one of the things that had happened to me years ago is that I had dealt with a lot of anxiety. And I think now my anxiety is actually my two kids, making sure everybody's healthy and happy, and, the lights are on, and making sure that, I'm an example for my children, which is an honor. And I do want to do a quick screen share, and I want to at least let people know in each podcast, I'll just share a little bit about myself, whether we have guests on or we don't. But this is actually from Downtime TV Studios, the Dream is Free podcast. And they're the talented group that actually created or actually helped on the editing and the content creation around CraigO's Crypto Corner. So they're the ones that do all the great editing for today's show. But if people want to get to know me, literally just go to Downtime TV and look up realtor and host CraigO's Crypto Corner. And you can find, I guess it's about an hour and 10 minutes on me. So that's enough of me, but I just wanted to each podcast share a little bit about who I am as a human being, because as your audience starts to connect, they start to really appreciate and love you, and those friendships really start to build. And that to me is what's most important. Keep it real, right?
I agree, dude. I agree. And I watched that podcast. So
cool.
Good episode. People should watch it if they want to know more. 100%.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to ask you what your greatest, we're not done yet. We got a lot, my friend.
I'm excited.
What is your greatest victory or money bag in Web3 that you are willing to share with the listeners? Because I've had conversations and some of those money bags get a little fucking crazy. I'll just drop one. So what is yours, my friend?
Well, my first ever NFT was WEB3. I bought it after the initial hype had dropped off. I was just like, wow, playable NFT. Beautiful art, backed up by a lot of cool people that people kind of forgot about. I feel like this is a play. So I bought 3 of them at like $50 or something like that, $100. And it was like 0.06 or something. And I bought one of the rarest in the whole collection, like a top 1% or something, or top 10%, and waited about 9 months. Then they partnered with Dogepound. They flew to 0.4 ETH or something, sold 1 or 2 of them, and then held the Celestial, the rare one, a little bit too long, and ended up selling it a little bit later in the market when it had crashed, still for a 2 ETH profit. So that was probably my biggest one-time flip, which is crazy to me. The fact that I bought it 9 months ago and I had practiced what I preached, held it through all the stupid negative times, people saying it was dead. And I was like, no, it's not dead. It's playable. It's like way further along pretty much any other project. So I kept holding it, knew that there was something coming for them. There's still a few projects that I think have something waiting in the cards for them that I think are still underrated. And I just kind of held it. And that was probably my biggest flip. Or maybe the bio pills. I never sold that one, but that one I remember calling that like super, super early, like 0.1. I think it was that project that you knew about too.
I do. We actually, my business partner and I, Sean, we share a wallet, and we actually have BYO land.
Nice.
And, I think we bought it for, oh my God, $3,000.
Yep.
I don't know where they're going, but I like what they're doing. And again, is it the hype train? Can they make a comeback? So let's talk about WEB3. Have you looked up that project as of lately, what they're doing, the developers?
No, not in a while. I know they partnered, they were with Steam for a while, and I think they're going to, last I heard, they'd partnered with Dogepound, who's a gaming studio now, and I think they're looking to go somewhere else on their platform. But I just like the guys over at WEB3. I want to interview them. I also have BioPills on the list. I was supposed to interview them like 6 months ago. It's never happened. And so, yeah, waiting to see what happens with BioPills. But as far as as far as flips, those are probably the ones that come to my mind right now. But there has been a couple of meetings where I've been in, super sketchy meetings, by the way, where this is probably, if you're a YouTuber watching this, you may have experienced this, or you may have heard about these things where you get into a room with these people. They're basically pitching you on a scam, but on your end of the stick, you're about to get dropped $150,000 or something like that. And I remember being in that conversation for the first time in Colorado in my room, and I'm like on a Zoom call. My mom's like teaching a piano lesson downstairs when I was living with them, and I'm just hearing this pitch, and I'm like, bro, this is a fucking this is like straight up bullshit. And he was like, yeah, man, like if you just help us do this, you'll get 15% of the mint. And I was like, wait a second, that's like hundreds of thousands of dollars when I do the math. And I was like, and I remember sitting there at my desk just like this and going like, yeah, I can't do this. I sure was like, I can't. I'm sorry. I would love to help you, but I don't how this isn't going to work. And so got out of that conversation, but
I don't like what comes with it. And then, by the way, when you tie into those types of things, and I was talking to my partner Sean this morning business partner about, what do we see? What do we want with sponsorship? And I don't know that I would necessarily want it in way of NFT communities, because NFT communities are building. Not saying that there couldn't be one that's solidified that I believe in, but it has to be tied to traditional products and services. And that was a no-go. That idea of like a small project that brings in big money that is now not tending to their community like maybe they should.
Yep.
And that's why I'm very big on the Twitter Spaces. I had a conversation with a founder, and they're going to be coming on soon enough. And it's a great community. But he did a Twitter Spaces, and it was amazing how many people came on. And that also goes to that you don't know who's watching.
Exactly.
And it was really cool when I came on and requested to speak. He's like, Craig, thanks for coming on and checking it out. And I said, absolutely. He's like, I like your content. I like what you're doing. And I think you need to continue to do more of these Twitter Spaces because the ultimate utility is showing up. What is your favorite crypto right now? A crypto that you're paying attention to? Because I'm going to share mine with you in a second, but I want to know what yours is.
Favorite crypto? Man, that one's tough. It would... I guess it's probably ETH.
Okay. All right.
What did you say?
I said it could be a micro or
okay. You know what? It's always got to be Dogecoin then. Dogecoin gave me my launch into NFT land or into crypto land in general. So it's got to be Doge.
Then it's Doge.
Yeah.
Doge made the life difference for you. And I think that's really cool because, again, that's where you got to deploy. You got the capital, and then you got to deploy that capital to invest in one of the best brands in Web3. Can I say one of the best brands? That's Cade, and that's the Joyage. My favorite token, and I want to share it with you. We're going to do a screen share in a second. I'll tell you when, Mike, not yet. Omi is my homie. And I had on Crypto Rain. And the Doctor of Stuff actually had turned me onto this Medium article, this blog article. And what I like about Medium, by the way, if you ever go on there, they actually have an audio. So what they'll do is if you have written content, they'll put an audio version to it as well. So if you're sitting in a restaurant, you want to take notes, you can do that. I'm more like I can listen, write the notes. And then if I can see the person speak, that actually is even better. But they wrote it. And I actually want to share that article in real time. Bear with me. I'll tell you when I've got it up. I've got it up. If you can do that screen share real quick, we'll get through this. So why Omi is my homie. I believe in this. It's part of the VV ecosystem. VV is its own app. So the Omi token is tied to Disney, Marvel, DC, and other large IP NFTs. VVverse is said to be coming in mid-November. Crypto pay in and pay out with the Omi token to purchase NFTs, and you would get a discount when you do. There are other projects using Omi token in subsequent ecosystems, which is really exciting. Ecomi is using the deflationary tokenomics with a burn mechanism. Each time an NFT is purchased on their platform, Omi gets burned. The next bull run, we should see a few things with this token: multiple exchanges, master collector programs, and the VVverse. These are powerful forces that have created an optimal opportunity. This is not financial advice. And I used to say, Cade, consult with your financial advisor. But let's be honest, financial advisors are not into this. And if they are, so quietly, they won't tell you.
That is very true. That is very true.
All right. So what is your favorite NFTs as of right now? And I believe there are two. So tell us what they are. And we're going to do a screen share in just a second. So cue that screen share as you start to talk.
Oh, man, that one's tough. My favorite NFTs. Oh, I guess if we're going like a PFP collection, I've always liked the Subducks. I remember just like way back in the day, they were so expensive for so long. And so when they started to come down, I was really excited to be able to get it. I just like the art. I've always liked Frankie, like I said, and it was just one of those communities that was like OG. I've always liked the Doge Pound. I'm a big fan of like the 2021 projects that were OG because they were all the projects I couldn't buy because they were so expensive and I just wasn't willing to fork over that much money. I knew they would come down at some point. There's no point. Like I remember I made this YouTube video and someone had asked me where I think Doge Pound will be because I'd been in that community a while during the bull market and I eventually got out because it went up in price. And so I told everyone, I was like, yeah, I'll buy Doge Pound under 1 ETH. And that was when they were at 4 ETH and everyone made fun of me. Everyone everyone made fun of me for that. They were like, Dogecoin is at 4 ETH. They will never go under 1 ETH. And I was like, that's funny. That is very funny. Every project will go back under 1 ETH if they're at anywhere near this realm. And at some point, they drop below 1 ETH. And I made this tweet and I bought one under 1 ETH. And I was like, but now I've held it. I became friends with John, who's the founder. And now it even means more to me. He actually traded me one of his personal Doges for the one I had, which is actually, let me pull it up right now. I have by far the cleanest Doge pound in the entire collection and it's a gift from John. So it's like, it's even better to hold it. So
how cool is that?
Let me see if I can find it. God, it's such a clean Doge. All right.
And Tykes. We'll also talk about Tykes. I think you had mentioned, right?
Yeah, I like Tykes too. Here it is. Let's see if it'll focus. 3, 2. Is it focusing?
Yep. I got it. I can see
it.
There you go. And so question for you. So with the Doge pound, right? What is the floor on that?
Like 0.2 with 0.4, somewhere in that region.
All right, cool. And so what are the ties with whether it's traditional business or utility? What do you like about the community that has kept you engaged? And obviously a great friendship with the founder.
Yeah, so the main thing with Doge, like some projects, I look at their IP and brand, and I think it's powerful enough. The Doge brand and IP is just too strong for any narrative. I think it's better than almost any narrative in the space as far as the culture and ethos of Web3. I feel like Doge is almost unbeatable, and they've always had the backing of some of the biggest people. And I think I don't know. I mean, they've got a bunch of really good people on the team. They've got a lot of the people from I believe it's My Pet Hooligan that worked on that game, working with Doge Pound. I know John's also like a game developer. He's worked in that world. So everyone there is in the gaming sphere. They're all friends with the people who do gaming stuff, and they're trying to be a gaming studio, which is like their main like utility. They changed from a PFP collection to a studio, and I like that. They did that early, way before anyone else was doing it. So I've always just liked them. And same with Subducks. I just like their art. I think their brand and IP is really strong. So with PFPs, I typically go for that. Not a lot of PFPs have any utility that's worth anything. So I just look at the brand and IP and say, how strong is this? How, unbreakable is this stuff? And so I would probably go with them. Tykes is one of the only PFPs that I know of that also is a PFP collection. And I just spoke with someone who's on their team, and we talked about a little bit of the back end stuff. And they're really, really mainly about bringing real estate, sales, marketing, all that stuff into Web3 space. But they're attacking it more from like a normal standard business model, just using NFTs to be like a token gated option and kind of building towards that future. And I like that as well. I like both styles. They come in from a Web 2 angle and trying to like use the tokenization of NFTs. So
I think that's a smart play. And by the way, I have a My Pet Hooligan, and I'll tell you how I got it. Check this out. So it's safe. It's
nice.
I guard it. There's I believe 7 different factions. Actually, that was one of my first and only right now project reviews where I did an in-depth on the orange paper. I'm going to be very curious to see how they're developing during this time. I might actually reach out to them again. I'd love to have them on and do a deep dive. But I actually got it because I got into this project called the metaverse. Did you ever hear about it? It's on the Ethereum thing. So I got 2 of them, and at the time of minting, I wasn't lucky enough to get on the whitelist, and that to me is really annoying with the whole whitelist BS. And I think that will change maybe through other mechanics or involvement, because a lot of projects realize that when you start to do the whitelist, what do you have? Paper hands. They literally will get it at 0.001, and then they'll go sell it for 0.1. They'll cash out. They really won't appreciate the project, and I think maybe there's a better vetting process. But I actually got it because in the metaverse, there is the MET token. And at one point, that MET token was worth some money. And I was able to then get 1 full Ethereum from these 2 properties, right? Combine it into 1 wallet. And then I was able to purchase directly a My Pet Hooligan. Nice. And my buddy Sean and I, and Anderson, who was in on the show. So it was really cool to kind of seek about the strategy. And most importantly, I'm in still both projects, the diversification and this bear. And why would I sell at a loss when I think both projects have long-term value? They were both able to create incredible excitement. And I also want to talk about one more project on screen share, one that you had mentioned offline, which is Invisible Friends. Mike, can you clear that up? All right. So, talk to me about Invisible Friends.
Yeah, dude. I've always been a fan of art projects. As you can see, I have my Goon back there. I have my where's that angle? I have my Subduck back there. My Goon over here. I'm a big fan of artists. All my art, all the stuff in the background of my studio is all art from artists in the space. And Marcus Magnuson is also one artist. He also blew up when he dropped the Invisible Friends collection. I just like anyone who is an artist who also puts in a little bit of effort into the other end of NFTs, which is the business side, which is like taking care of technical shit and stuff like that. And so I like Invisible Friends friends for that reason. They never strayed away from it. They never pretended to be anything they weren't. They never made a bunch of promises, then didn't keep up with them. They always kind of took it in stride, and they kind of managed the hype in a decent way. And they never pulled a hate beast where they went to 10 ETH and then dropped, under 1 ETH, like 0.5 ETH, or metaverse went from 11, 12, 15 ETH to like 0.1 ETH or something like that. They're still always held around like, I don't know, like 2 ETH or something like that. So people always valued it just because the art, which is sort of similar to my access keys. People value my access keys based on my output on content, how well I'm growing in the space. And then just like the art itself, like to put up a piece of art like that. And for Marcus, since he's an artist, I think people, when they look at the PFP, it's not just a PFP, it's like a PFP designed by Marcus, because that's his art piece. And so I like that side of it. And they're doing a bunch of cool things. They collaborate with Kith. And I'm like, guys, they're doing everything right from this standpoint. And when I see strong legs, I don't know, strong legs, strong roots, they go down deep, and I think they'll get better and better over time. There's not that many projects that you can really say anything good about at this point in the market, right?
I agree. But, there's that metric that we don't often talk about, which is our gut. And the reason that people should tune into your podcast and mine is because we have a pulse on the market. We're talking to people. Doesn't mean we're always right. It's not financial advice. You always got to throw that one out there. Now, I believe that the Elrond ecosystem showed you a lot of love this past week on Twitter. And I do want to talk a little bit about them, what your initial thoughts are, because you're going cross-chain, right? We're both on Ethereum. We love Ethereum. We also are engaged in Solana. But Elrond, what are your thoughts on Elrond, first impressions, and any NFT projects that you're looking into? And you can either be specific or you don't have to, because again, we want to keep it very general too.
Yeah. So first with Solana, I tried really hard to get into Solana. I just don't care. I don't know. I didn't really fuck with any of the projects that much. As far as their ecosystem from a content creation angle, I feel like I've missed that boat by a few months at least. It's already pretty established. I'm like, okay, well, if there's a blockchain that I'm getting into, it's because I want to get in early. So I already kind of missed the Solana boat. So I'm like, okay, like I'm looking at Cardano, I'm looking at Elrond, I'm looking at some of those other blockchains where I'm like, okay, there's a potential here for me to fill a niche here of content creation that hasn't been filled yet. So that's my goal there. So I looked a little bit in Cardano, was largely unimpressed by everything. I always look at the art first. So I went into the collections, the top 25, top 50 collections, and just kind of checked it out. See if there's any that I saw the artwork where I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Let me look a little bit more into it. Jumped into Elrond. So after I kind of gave up on Cardano, no offense, my Cardano people, you'll survive probably. But I jumped into Elrond, found a couple collections I liked. I'll just mention one of them because you're also in it. And I think a couple other people are in it. I like the e-punks. I don't know. Anything first at anything is always going to be more desirable. And I think they're first mintable, or their first.
That is correct. First minted project.
Yeah. So I like the e-punks. I also like to play on punks, obviously. And I don't know, it just looks a little bit more unique. It's a project that I wouldn't mind seeing in my wallet every time I open up, which is something that I always look at for PFP stock collections. And I haven't jumped into their community yet. I haven't done enough research, honestly. It's been a really, really busy couple of weeks with NFT Seattle's conference coming up. I was preparing for that, trying to film videos. Then I had a couple of days of other things going on. But I am very excited to get into it. And I want to start scripting, trying to figure out videos, figure out what the Elrond community needs and wants, figure out who's who, kind of just like navigating my way through it. And I've met a lot of cool people. And you're right, the Elrond ecosystem shows up. Every time anyone tweets anything about it, they show up.
Yeah, no, they do. And they're very passionate about it. And a shout out to all the communities that are doing right, the founders that are engaging, the holders that are passionate. So I do want to talk about the e-punks because you brought it up. And so here's the thought, right? I inquired with the e-punks on their DAO pass, and I got one. And for the record, yeah, I hold one. As of right now, and for those that don't know, a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization where that wallet purchases a multiple of different NFTs, and then they share those. As they are buying and selling, they're sharing their tokens. You're either getting Eagle, the native token. There's some other reward as well, and also can make the value of those DAO passes go up. So right now, their DAO holds at this very moment 70 Elrond apes, 62 e-punks. They're also, the DAO is the number 4 holder of all Elrond apes and the number 3 holder of all e-punks, which I like to know that at least in a collection that is safeguarded, it's nice to know that they're one of the top holders of the entire collection. Some people might debate me on that, and I'm okay with it. I do want to talk about your traveling, because you're traveling all over the place. You're, at this point in your life, that's something you're more readily able to do. What are you noticing the vibes? I'll talk a little bit about NFT NYC, but talk to me about Seattle and any of the other NFT events that you've been to and what you've noticed from the level of excitement, engagement, and what have you learned each time that you come away from an event?
Dude, I have a lot to say about the in real life events, but real quick before I jump into that, the point you mentioned about the PFP collections that you buy into. For myself, I've always looked at things from a slightly different angle than I feel like a lot of people do. And so like when I look at NFTs, I really don't attach the monetary value as much, and I don't really care how it does as an investment. I've never considered NFTs like an investment. I feel like I would be laughed at if I walked into a room and said I bought that random JPEG picture and I expected profit 3 months later. You know what I mean? Like, so I look at it as kind of just like pulling slots, right? But if there's a project that I want to buy into and hold and just be there, it's because the potential network opportunities, who else is in this project that I can get to know, and then what kind of experiences can be had because I've joined this community now and just been part of it. Like for me, at some point I'll join one of the big PFP brands. So it'll be fun and have this hurrah probably. And I'm looking forward to it. But I'm more excited to just be in the club, right? Like that's the main reason people got into punks in the beginning. They wanted to be a punk. They want to be an ape. They want to be whatever NFT. And that's how I've always looked at NFTs. I've always held that same kind of attitude towards especially PFP collections. So for me, it's about being in the collection, finding the one that I think has the best representative of what I'm trying to get to, and just be part of the group and be like, what's up, homies? You know, like that's how I look at it. Now, in regards to the conferences, I love the conferences, even though all the days leading up to it, I don't want to go. 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 I think of any excuse I can to get out of it. As soon as I show up, I meet the most random people ever. I just have a good time. I made some crazy connections, talked to people that I never in another lifetime would have the opportunity to get into the same room with. I remember when at NFT New York City, I ended up at the Hate Beast VIP party. Don't even hold a Hate Beast, but somehow I got in, and I'm in there. And like after like 30 minutes, I see my friend Mikey G talking to this group of people, and I kind of walk over. I think I was going to say bye, and I was going to leave, and he was like, "Wait, Cade." He's like, "Come here. I want to meet you. I want to introduce you to this guy." And I started talking to him, and about 10 minutes in the conversation, I was like, "Wait, so what do you do?" And he goes, "Oh, dude, I own all the hype houses in LA." And I was like, "Hype houses, like the TikToker hype houses with all the famous people?" He's like, "Yeah, I own them." And I was like, "Oh, I'm talking to like a multi-billion, like probably like a billionaire or something." And I was like, "Whoa, you own those houses?" Like the way it works, they take like a commission off every single brand deal. These brand deals are like $500,000 each thing, right? He's got like 20 people in all these houses. I was like, "Yo, what the fuck?" And he's like, "Yeah, we're doing this NFT project with this super established tattoo guy." And I'm like sitting here meeting all these people. I'm like, bro, I'm like 23 years old in this room with all these people. I'm a YouTuber with a few thousand subscribers and nothing else to my name. What am I doing here? And why are they taking me seriously? But it was a cool moment because in the Web3 space, you get those opportunities. You talk to people that otherwise would have no opportunity to get to because they've conquered their world. Maybe they're trying to get into this Web3 world for potential money, for potential new adventure. And it's fun. It's really, really cool.
I love it, man. And I want for people on my podcast to go and check out what you're doing because you're creating incredible content. Your influence is only going to continue to grow. You always got a seat at my table, my friend. And some closing words, right? What's one word of wisdom that you can leave our guests with from today's conversation?
Oh man. Well, I mean, one of the things I've been learning past year probably is that like there's always some random wave that you're gonna have to surf, and at some point it ends, and then you think it's all good, and then another one comes up, and then how you mentioned very early on the podcast about your kids, how all your anxiety turned into like just you taking care of your kids. I think in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about it that way. I also another podcast that Layla and Alex Hormozy talked about kind of echoes in my brain, where they were just like, take care of your bullshit before you bring someone else that's going to be in your life for a long time. Take care of your stuff before, so that your anxiety can basically be taken up by this new thing that you want to have anxiety about, like your kids or your wife or whatever. And I kind of like that attitude. If I want to fix all the things that are going on up here that I need to figure out, all my insecurities and stuff, I want to take care of that now. So I'm kind of almost allowing myself to sit in that despair at times and hopelessness when it comes, and just stress about stuff like bills or this or that, or like this person texting me back or something, or this deal maybe falling through. I'm just kind of like letting it all suck really bad when it does and kind of feeling it. Because I think at some point I will be able to replace that. I will get to a point where I've done so many of them that it doesn't become stressful and something else can now take its place, something bigger that actually matters maybe. And I can start to almost respect myself more because of it, because I survived all these other things. And I think my advice is just like, just continue surfing the waves, and at some point you will be kind of capable of taking on those bigger and bigger challenges, and you can become and start to act as that role that you want to be at some point in the future, and just kind of keep your head on the fucking, just keep going.
I love it, my friend. It has been an honor today having you on. More great conversation to come throughout the months and years, because we'll be in it for a very long time. You and I have no doubt about it. Thank you so much, Cade, for coming on. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you for having me on. I had a great time in the Cryptos Corner. Shout out everyone who's working behind the scenes. Very professional. I fucking loved it. This was a great time.
This is awesome, man. And yeah, so we're now off. We're still on Twitter.